And we are off. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Make sure you check in so I can see who's here. Do me a favor. Let's see who's first on. Hello, Don. How are ya? I'm sorry it's 9:03. I had to pop out to the backyard to do a couple of things, and everything is good down in Louisiana. So, good evening to you, sir, and good evening to everybody else that's going to be popping on here. Just wanted to say, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you being here. We got a couple of news stories. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, I think it's going to be fun, right? So it turns out I'm more of a philosophical human than I would imagine, but we're gonna have a good time. So come on in and check in. Just me and you so far. Well, there's somebody else that's watching. I got a total count of 3. So we never know who's gonna show up, but hopefully this will be liked and shared. And if it's liked and shared, and people ring the notification bell, then they can get spread around the world. We'll do that multimedia. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about how do we communicate? Why do we communicate? It's going to be so much fun. All right, so let's get ready to go. And let's go to number 3 on the board. And, let me get the music down. Hello, Susie. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. We've got a small but enthusiastic crowd with us tonight, and welcome to Mickey in the Middle. My name is Mickey, and this is the quintessential show for all Middle Americans, where we talk about issues that are important to Middle Americans and how if we all stick together and you pick the middle side instead of the right side or the left side, how we can make our country just absolutely the best country in the whole wide world. Now, I already believe it is the best country in the whole wide world. And what we have to do is we have to work hard every single day to make sure that the voices of Middle Americans are heard wide and clear. We are the largest voting bloc. If we do not talk about the 20% of crazies on the left, the 20% of the crazies on the right, if we just stick in our wheelhouse, which is a 60% of the Americans in the middle, then we have got something going. See, because that's what we got to do. We got to get it going on. So when I say that, I want to show you a thing that I have been working on. It's called Operation 536. And Operation 536 is to replace everybody in Congress. That's in the House. That's in the Senate. This is going to be the symbol for that. It's kind of like the one for Mickey in the Middle. Just because I'm not that creative and I already had a thing and I was like, hey, let's just go ahead and take this. So the whole idea behind Operation 536 is to defeat every single incumbent up there. Now we have 536 people that run our country. 536. And then there's the Supreme Court, which has got 9 members on it, and they're supposed to be the adjudicators, and they're supposed to be the judges that determine whether what we're doing down here in Congress, in throughout the states, and for each individual, whether that's legal and constitutional. And constitutional and legal are 2 different things. Not everything goes into the Constitution. Not everything fits inside of the Constitution. The Constitution is there in order to just protect our basic rights, and then the laws of the land are how we operate things. So whether it's Department of Transportation, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Environment, or the EPA, or Environmental Protection Agency. So that's how it works, right? So we have a Constitution that protects all of us and shows how we're going to basically run the country, who's responsible for what, everything that doesn't belong to this, everything that doesn't specifically, is not specifically delegated to the federal government goes to the states. That's the way that it worked, right? So we have 50 different little countries. That's why we have governors and state legislatures and state judicial systems, and all of the states have their own little things. So we have 50 different little countries. Let's not get this confused, right? We don't want to have one big country. I don't want everybody that is in California and New York ganging up on the little bitty state of Arkansas, which has like 3 to 3.5 million people. Louisiana only has 4 million people. The state of Georgia has 4 million, 5 million people over there. We don't want a couple of states beating up on the rest of the states. We want them to leave us alone. I want to keep my Second Amendment. I don't care what New York does. So New York can keep their Second Amendment. So the whole idea behind Operation 536 is to replace everybody in Congress. That's the House of Representatives, which they have 2-year terms, and everybody in the Senate, which has 6-year terms, and we can replace everybody in Congress in the next 6 years. We can replace everybody in the House in 2 years, everybody in the Senate in 6 years. My preference is replace red with red, replace blue with blue. That way, we just want them to work together and talk together. So that's my idea. And we want to spread this, so I'm going to do a little bit about this on the beginning of every single show so people get the word out and people can spread that. If you don't like that, then just go ahead and scoot ahead until I don't have that sign on there anymore. And that's my advice to everybody. Skip the intro and then move on. So tonight, I have been watching the hearings that Rudy Giuliani has put together with, I don't even know what state they're in. I don't even know what that state they're in, right? So they went to Wisconsin. I think they went to Michigan. I think they did one in Nevada. And here's the funny thing about that. Here's the funny thing about this. They're not repeating themselves. A lot of the same themes are going on, but if you've been watching a couple of organizations are live streaming that across the internet. YouTube is really, really great for that. Just go to YouTube or Rumble, get the feed, and it'll feed, and you can watch the entire thing. They were planning on having a 3-hour hearing. They're in their 4th hour, where they are bloviating, and witnesses are going forth, and people are asking questions. And here's the deal is, I watched that thing, and I've got more questions right now about how the election process worked in those swing states. So the swing states were Florida, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. There's more questions in my mind about how they ran their election up there than I could ever think that there would ever be about an election. And I think that this is serious. So what happened in 2016, and I'm going to get to my main point, which is communication here in just a second. But what happened in 2016 is the Democrats said that Donald Trump colluded with Russia to swing the election towards Donald Trump. And that didn't happen, right? So we had 3 years worth of investigations that basically said, and Mueller even came out in his executive summary and said there's no proof that Donald Trump or Donald Trump's campaign colluded with Russia. So there was no evidence there, right? They didn't talk to any people in the United States. They didn't have any hearings on that other than to say, hey, look here, we're going to start investigations. But it never came to anything. It never came to fruition. It was a bunch of accusations. Right now, they have got sworn affidavits and testimony across all 5 of those states that say that something fishy happened because all 5 of those states stopped counting their votes in the middle of the night. All 5 of those states have so many questions about mail-in ballots and the total count of mail-in ballots against the registered rolls that those are not adding up. And then the final question that they have was, why did they all not want Republicans to ever watch the poll counters? So every single one of those states had such a pushback from the Democrats who were running the election to get all of the Republicans out of the room. So why are those 3 things so important? Those 3 things are so important because it all happened simultaneously in all 5 of those states, and that makes me suspect on why that would happen uniformly across those jurisdictions and those precincts. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump had a huge lead, and all of a sudden it just nosedived and tanked, and the next thing you know, Donald Trump supposedly lost. So those are my questions that I now have is, everybody's in the room and everybody's watching. That means that they can now go subpoena people they can hold trials, and they can go, what did you see? What do you know? And if you don't tell the truth, we're going to throw you in jail. And if you don't think that Becky, Karen, Steve, Bobby, whatever, will cave with the threat of going to jail, they will crack like a raw egg. So somebody has to have a hearing. Somebody has to threaten people with going to jail. And somebody's got to go to jail. That's the only way to stop this stuff. If any shenanigans happen, first you got to have a trial. Then first you have to have a case. Then you have to have a trial set. Then you have to have discovery so that you can determine whether there's actually meat on that bone. And then you have to hold people accountable that know about the process. And the people that are dirty need to go to jail. Now, I'm just saying, that's the way that it goes. So, hey, Sherry's here, and Lane is here, and Mark is here, and Sherry, hello, Bruce Lund, all the way up there from Alaska. Hello, Mark Calcaterra. There you go. So that's going on. So I want to start off real quick with a couple of things from the big board. I call this big board. This is an example of how media twists news stories, right? So this right here is a story called Project Veritas. Project Veritas basically listened in on CNN morning 9 o'clock calls every day for 2 months, and they recorded them all, and Project Veritas is slowly releasing them over time. So anyway, Matt Wilstein wrote a story for the Daily Beast, and that story says Project Veritas CNN sting uncovers explosive news that Tucker Carlson is racist. Did you know that Tucker Carlson is racist? You read this right here, and it says Tucker Carlson is racist, and that means that they can prove it. So what I did is I actually read the story. So when you scroll down right here, then you read this, it says, so what were the supposedly shocking comments O'Keefe uncovered? According to his group's Tuesday night release, the most damning thing anyone on CNN's editorial team did was accuse Fox News Tucker Carlson of being a racist. So they didn't do any. So Tucker Carlson cannot be defined as a racist, like it says in the title, but it says they are accusing Tucker Carlson of being a racist. So then they're like, I think it's unavoidable that you have to talk about the naked racism of Tucker Carlson, a man Project Veritas identified as CNN Digital VP of Global Programming Marcus Mabry said on the tape. It turns out that it wasn't Mabry, but because that's really what drove his anti-diversity push. You know, Trump watches Tucker Carlson's show and then reacts, and just sort of the white supremacy hour they have on Fox News every night. So they didn't really find out that Tucker Carlson was racist. They just accused him, and then they put out the story on the Daily Beast, which has millions and millions of followers over there. And if you don't read the story, what happened is somebody accused Tucker Carlson of being racist. Tucker Carlson, somebody accused Tucker Carlson of that. And that's what bothers me about this, right? So another story that we have right here is about Flynn, General Mike Flynn. And what the story is here about Mike Flynn is Trump's former national security advisor shared a message asking the president to suspend the Constitution, impose martial law, and hold a new election, implying that the former national security advisor, who was a former national security advisor for about a month before they got him in the coup to take over, right? But if you read down here, what he did is he actually shared a tweet. The message was an ad from a right-wing activist group asking Trump to declare limited martial law in order to have the people re-vote. Lynn shared the press release about the ad on Twitter, tagging several Trump-supporting lawyers and media personalities, and wrote, the only thing that he wrote was, freedom never kneels except for God. So, going back to that, once again, the headline does not match the story. He retweeted something and add, the only reason you should ever kneel is for God. And all of a sudden they're going, Michael Flynn is calling for martial law, which is it could be done, but it'd be so hard to do, and there'd be a lot of fluff on that, and I don't think that would ever get done on that. So, but I just wanted to share this with you as a lead in to the story I'm talking about tonight. And it's about mass media, and it's about the voice, and it's about the push, because the push is real. The push is real. And if you go back a long time ago, you're going to understand that, hold on just a second. I forgot something. I forgot something. I gotta see if I can find it real quick. Okay. All right. So this is the last thing I wanted to do. All right, so this is the last thing I wanted to show you on this, right? Because this is also in the story, and this is why you have to be careful with mass media before I get into my thing about mass media. Watch this, right? So this is the way it is. Right in here. Declaring martial law does not suspend the Constitution, and the military has no role in administering elections. Even if it did, it would not be able to implement a national revote because the right to vote is not specified in the Constitution or by a federal statute. Did everybody get that? Literally, this person is saying that implement a national revote. They can't implement a national revote because the right to vote is not specified in the Constitution or by a federal statute. Well, I don't know what the hell this person is reading, right? But this right here is the 14th Amendment. And inside of the 14th Amendment, it says representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for president and vice president of the United States, representatives, Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or the members of the legislature is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such states being 21 years of age and citizens, covering everybody else, and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridging except for participation in a rebellion or other crimes. So right there in the 14th Amendment, it says who can vote, right? The 15th Amendment, it says the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. How about the 12th Amendment? Electors shall meet in their respective state to vote by ballot for president of the United States, and everybody knows that electors are now named in every state by a vote of the people. God, it kills me that these assholes are writing stuff that is blatantly untrue, because that dude just said that nowhere in the Constitution or in any law does it say that you have a right to vote. Oh, kills me. How are these stupid people allowed to take one of the biggest platforms, which is a Daily Beast, and talk about you don't have a right to vote? And then you just saw two examples of the lie. Number one, you don't have a right to vote. Number two, Flynn, they basically inferred that Flynn called for a military coup in order to implement a revote, which he didn't do that either, right? So this all goes back to the beginning. So at the beginning, and this is why I'm getting to why it relates to you really, really quick, right? Let me catch up on some notes right here. Jeff LeMay, how you doing? Jeff LeMay says, if you like Trump or not, this must be looked into. Right. Both sides need to look into this because we need this stuff fixed. That's 100% correct, Jeff. Zucker is busted. Zucker's busted. Listen, man, they promote narratives on CNN. It's all narrative based, right? Find out what our narrative is and then angle everything towards that narrative. And if it's against the narrative, squash it or deny it or disprove it, even if you're lying about it, and we will stick to our narrative and we promote our narrative across the board every single day. That board will change because every single day they have a 9 o'clock meeting where Jeff Zucker, whatever his name is, Zucker gets to determine what the entire CNN staff is going to say. Mark Ben says, racist, Nazi, homophobe, xenophobe, etc. is so overplayed. Doesn't even matter anymore. It just means you don't agree with the leftists. Right. So they'll probably call me a racist. They'll probably call me a homophobe. They'll probably call me white racist SOB. They can call me whatever they want. I'm secure enough in myself that I know that. My friends know that. And I've got 58-year track record of being an awesome dude. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if Trump won the way Biden did, I'd ask, what the heck? That is correct. I would be asking the same thing. See, things need to make sense. And right now, things do not make sense because people have not come forward like this before. These people, if you watch them testify, they know that they're going to be a pariah. They know that they are going to be just absolutely lambasted over, signing affidavits and going in to testify. These people some of them are scared. Here's what the deal is, man. I got a spare room. My dad's got a spare room. They can sleep in there and I'll protect them. I'll take care of them. Come on, let's go. I might need to go to Arkansas to get a couple of things, but then I'll be right back and they can protect them. They can stay with me. So, Jeff LeMay, why do we need just one president? Just listen to who you agree and trust. Without my taxes, they don't exist, if you get my drift. I do get your drift. So, we actually have 51 presidents. And this is one of the themes of our show. We have 51 presidents. 50 of them are called governors. Right? They run their own state. That's why they have their state taxes, why they have all the state administrative processes, the state congressional, the districts and the representatives, the senator. That's why they have an attorney general. That's why they have a judicial department, Department of Corrections. So we have 50 different presidents that are all in the states, and then we have one for the entire federal government. And they're going to get all the money they can from you in taxes at the state, and they're going to get as much money as they possibly can up at the federal government because they don't want you to have money. They want you to be a slave to them to pay for their programs. And I'm tired of being just working every day and sending a quarter of my paycheck to them so that they can do whatever you need. 230 needs to be repealed. Don, you are 100% correct. So 230, for those of you who don't know that are just catching up, 230 protects social media companies and anybody that transmits anything over wire from liability, from prosecution and civil lawsuits, because that's what they used to protect the companies while they were making the internet grow. So that means that Amazon's protected, Google is protected, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, all of those companies, because they say that we're just a platform for people to get their word out. Which is, I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So they're just getting the word out. We're just a platform so people can say whatever they want to say. But as soon as they get editorial control, which means that they're changing the text message or deleting things, now all of a sudden they're the editors, and that means that they're prosecutable, but not under 230. So if we get rid of 230, that means that these big-ass corporations that make billions and billions and billions of dollars every single year are no longer protected from liability. And that thing needs to go next, right? It's about telling people what the media wants them to believe. Mark Calcaterra, you're 100% correct, and that's why we're going to talk about this real quick. All right, so here's what my point was about tonight's show. When we started our country, we didn't have any form of mass communication. We started off with basically town criers and newspapers. And the way that you spread the word was either by word of mouth, or you had to print something and then send that out. And the only thing that got printed was the things that the government or newspaper people wanted you to know. And then there was the publishers that published books and magazines and things like that. So if you look at the Federalist Papers, those were printed in the newspapers of the time in New York, Philadelphia, Boston, all the big cities, and that's the way that news got out. So the only people that really had a voice were the government, which would direct people to say things and send that out, or these publishers that then had the right to print whatever they wanted, and then people would buy that and consume that as their news, and then the word would go out from there by word of mouth. Most people didn't read, and the few people that could read just told other people what the real deal was. So it was a very, very, very narrow path in which news got out. So when we start talking about becoming a nation, that was all word of mouth, that was underground, saying, hey, look here, man, we're going to go ahead and kick the king and queen of England to the curb, or the king of England to the curb, King George to the curb, and we're going to have to build consensus in bars and in pubs and in businesses secretly, because we do not want to be accused of sedition against the state of England until we get a little bit of firepower underneath us, and then we're going to throw a bunch of tea in the harbor, and then we're going to go. And then Paul Revere's going to make his ride because he saw it. So then Paul Revere became the symbol of many riders that rode that night, spreading the word that the British are coming, stand up to arms, grab your weapons, and go fight this stuff. So it was all word of mouth. So the way that things then went was town criers, the papers, the publishers, and then we got things like the Pony Express and then the Telegram. So the Telegram kind of changed the game because now people could communicate with themselves without relying on the postal service one letter at a time. That's why letters are so important from time back in. So like when George Washington wrote his wife or wrote somebody else, that was documentation of what was going on from that person's perspective, but it was very narrow in scope, and we didn't have mass communication except for the newspapers. And that's important because for the first time with the advent of Telegram and with the Pony Express, we could communicate more broadly and we could communicate better messages as we influenced newspaper publishers that were popping up all over the country. But they still had editorial control over those messages that were in the paper, right? So it all makes sense so far. Then the telephone and the hard line means that you can now call anybody you wanted to over any distance. So that if you want family business to take care of, your personal business to be taken care of, you now had a way of communicating across the country in an instant to get your message across. And that was a powerful, powerful tool. But it was still very limited to the number of people you could talk to because they didn't have conference calls back then. So that the information to the normal people was still word of mouth. Then the next thing you had Blackberries popped up and texting and paging. Remember the Blackberry? Hold it on your hip. Hey, call this number. That was pretty effective because now it was the first way that we can go, hey, call me, and then you could instantaneously communicate. And then cell phones popped up, which was awesome. And then smartphones popped up, and then we got texting. And we could send a whole bunch of texts to different people. That means that we got the right to speak on a larger platform. But we also got airplanes, we also had cars, we also had venues, so one or two people could actually elevate themselves into the world prominence because of television. And when television really, really kicked off in the 50s and 60s and 70s, now you had platforms for famous people that they could mass influence. And everybody tuned into the big three, ABC, CBS, and NBC. There was only three that went nationwide. I remember watching the black and white TV when I was a kid, and then when we got a TV, there was still only three stations. Finally, somewhere in the late 80s and 1990s, cable came about. And that's where really mass marketing and mass production of opinions from the people came from. You got to remember, for our history, up until 1980, we didn't have massive platforms that any individual can use in order to do this. You just had to sit at home and you had to bitch to your neighbors about what was going on in the government. And you got all that information from the news because the news was fair. And they took it upon themselves as going, hey, look here, we're not going to pick sides as far as we know, but we're going to be Democrat, but we're still going to report. We're going to report all the important things. Hey, look here, man, America's great. America is horrible. Vietnam. America is great. Going to the moon. Martin Luther King is fantastic. Let's get rid of all of this stuff. All the good and the bad started coming in, and we can make up our own minds, but it was still controlled. Now that we got past that and we got social media has only been around for 15 to 20 years. It was after 20, what was it, AOL in the late 90s? What was the other ones I wrote down here, right? Where did I write them down? So, AOL, MySpace, Google+, all those companies have failed. But this is the first time that you have had a thing. And they said, hey, look here, we're going to give you, we're going to say that nobody can shut the companies down. We can't blame them because we're trying to grow the internet because we know that it's going to be so important to the voices of America. So what I'm saying right now is, if you are only getting one side of an argument and your side is blasting the same thing like Zucker did with CNN, they are polluting your mind because they are controlling your thoughts. You have got to get outside of your box and you got to give other people the benefit of the doubt so that you can expand your mind and find out, why do people think that AOC is full of crap when she says we can't have cows anymore? You got to find out why she says, hey, no fracking, no drilling. When other people are saying, hey, look here, no, we've got carbon capture technology that stops all the CO2 from getting up in the atmosphere. Hey, we got to use batteries. Everything's got to go electric. Well, what about nuclear power? What about stripping all the rare earth magnets from the earth? What is that going to do to the North Pole? What is that going to do to vast swaths of our earth that we're just digging up all these? And there are very, very few places to dig up rare earth magnets, but we're finding them. And I think it's going to be just like oil. We keep discovering deposit upon deposit upon deposit of petroleum products, and that's why we still use it, because right now we can. So you got to get both sides of an argument. When Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Google, MSN, MSNBC, CNN, ABC, CBS, Fox News, when they tell you something, you've got to question it. You got to question it. You just can't line up on one side. You don't line up on one side. Listen to the other side and go, all right, I'm willing to listen and give you an opportunity to tell me why you think that way. So that's why I don't want you on the right. That's why I don't want you on the left. I want you on the side of the middle, which basically says, look here, we have got to hold our politicians accountable for what they are doing. Right now, half of these states are locking down. Governor Newsom is going to go absolutely crazy over in California. I mean, it's absolutely brutal what they're doing to humanity, what they're doing to our middle class, what they're doing to our lower class. And all of a sudden they're saying, hey, look here, you're not important enough to go to work and get food for yourself. You are not important enough. Well, why not? Hey, because COVID's spreading. Okay, but I got to go get food. You're not allowed to go get food. That's not right. I'm in the middle. I think that people need to get food. I think that we need to educate everybody and just go, hey, look here, man, we're going to take all the chains off, but please, for God's sakes, beg the people of the states to do the right things. You don't need to go throw people in jail. Right now in New York, there's mass protests outside of a bar that they shut down because the owner said, I can't shut down, I'm out of money, and my employees are out of money, and we need to stay working so that we can have money so that we can survive. And then they went and arrested him, closed down his business, and now there's massive protests outside because half of the people that were saying shut him down didn't consider that his family has nothing to eat. That's just one issue that I'm talking about. We just became responsible for mass communication on a mass better. And you have good people and you have bad people. I'm Mickey in the middle. I'm not in this to make money. What I'm in here to build a coalition of middle Americans that want to hold our politicians accountable and talk about the issues and get down to the brass tacks. And I always say, investigate, investigate, investigate. And then when we have all the facts, then I will decide where I lay on an issue. I didn't determine whether Donald Trump was lying about what happened in Ukraine until the impeachment. And in the impeachment hearing, I heard all the witness testimony. I stayed up for hours and hours and hours watching witness testimony in the halls of Congress so that I can determine that all of those people that were saying the Ukraine Donald Trump play to pay thing was bullshit, and it was bullshit. I will never forgive Gordon Sondland for misinterpreting what he thought he heard because he never heard it, and then he told everybody a bad story and then they ran with it. So we know the crux of the problem in the Ukraine deal. His name was Gordon Sondland, and he seems like the nicest guy in the world. But when questioned, he went, well, no, nobody ever told me that. Oh, yeah, I told everybody in the Ukraine, everybody in our international service, everybody that was an ambassador, everybody that worked in the State Department, I told them all that, but nobody told me that. And I was the guy that was running the show. So I thought that that's what the White House wanted, but nobody at the White House told me. So it wasn't until I got that and I watched it myself that I found out that CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, they were all lying to me. All of the major newspapers, the New York Times, the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Shreveport Times, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette, in one voice they were lying to me. And the only voice of reason was Fox News and independent journalism's and voice like this. So my final point about this is you might have to go and do some research. You might have to leave Facebook. You might have to. I'm not leaving Facebook. I'm going to be here, but my primary presence is eventually going to be because nobody can replace Facebook. Nobody's got an alternative to Facebook. Parler is an alternative to Twitter, and Rumble is an alternative to YouTube, but there's not a replacement for Twitter. Nobody can replace TikTok because they don't have the ability to go and do that with the massive amount of money it takes in. So I'm not going anywhere on Facebook until I'm ready to move because I need enough people on Parler in order to do this. But what I'm saying is go and research. Go and find out if what they're saying about the election is true or false. And you will find out really, really quickly that all of these people that have come in, a lot of them are independents, know that this was a bullshit election and that some shenanigans went on, and that if we don't get to the bottom of this and we don't stop this, it is not going to get better in the next election. So the only thing I care about, and I've said this before and I will say it again, I don't care whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden is the next president of the United States. I don't care who won a fair election. Joe Biden can't hurt the United States any more than any other president did, and we have survived every single president from George Washington the first, all the way up to Trump, who was almost impossible to live with because he just, God, if you just shut up for a while. So we've survived all of those presidents. We're going to survive into the future, but we need to make sure that we get our news from good, competent sources, and that when we put something out, we put out good information, and we make sure that we don't get throttled because 230 is in effect, and we need to make sure that these multimedia companies are not controlling your ability to project out to the world. And if anybody wants to start a different Facebook, if it's any good or anywhere close to Facebook and I can get all my friends over there, I'll take them with me. So I'm just going to say you'll get my money. So that's all I got to say to that. All right. So what do we got? This was such a sham. It was. Never thought about the rare earth magnet thing. Hey, that's why I'm here. It was such a sham. Biden was the one who played off the play to pay scheme on tape, bragging about it. That is correct. Biden was bragging about it. Listen to me. We got to do our part, everybody. We got to do our part. I don't want you to join the right. I don't want you to join the left. I want you to join the middle. I want you to join the middle like good Americans should, and to fight for truth, justice, the American way, where we can all make our country better by getting rid of everybody in Congress. If you've got one term in Congress or you have 35 years in Congress, I want you all good. Replace blue with blue, replace red with red. The only thing we want them to do is talk to each other. So, heads need to roll. U.S. election is supposed to be sacred ground. This is BS. Tomorrow's 30 days. Bruce Lund, you are 100%. I'm going to read that again. Heads need to roll. U.S. election is supposed to be sacred ground. This is BS. Tomorrow's 30 days. You want to know why? For everybody that doesn't get Bruce's point, you have been disenfranchised if what they are alleging and what will be proved in court, in my opinion, is true. It doesn't matter whether you're blue or whether you are red. If you voted in this election, they have not cared about your voice. They have said, we are going to not count you. That means you have zero voice in what happens to you in this election. You have zero voice what will happen to you tomorrow, and they will continue to perpetrate this, and they will go, oh, your vote counted, which is bullshit. If they cheated, your vote didn't count. And your vote will never count. And then we might as well go back to nobody ever votes. We're just going to have to sit around there and we're going to have to do whatever they say because they're going to rig every single election. I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to rig every single election and you will never have to vote again if we let this stand. We have to investigate. We have to do discovery. We have to make sure that we get into the court system. The court settles this because they're the judicial branch, and then those folks are going to have to go and spend some time in jail, long time in jail. Some of them need to be hung for treason if they're found to be treasonous. So that's all I got for tonight. I want to end on a happy note. So I'm going to end in a happy note. That wasn't very happy, but it's the best I could do under the circumstances. So, remember, Mickey in the Middle Monday night, Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. Central, right here. Remember to like, share, ring the notification bell. That's about it for tonight. So, thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. Thanks a lot for your comments. I greatly appreciate it. Remember, live, laugh, love, peace. See you later, man. Mark, I have no idea how we're ever going to know the truth. Hopefully.